Hello, and welcome to the East Africa Business Podcast. This show is all about showcasing entrepreneurs who are building businesses in this exciting part of the world. From reading high-level articles about the region, it can be difficult to really understand what's going on. And so my hope is that these interviews somewhat bring it to life, as well as stoking your curiosity to go find out more. On that, do take a look in the archive for more episodes that we've done. But for now, let's enjoy the rest of this funky intro music and then get started with the show. One of the upsides of the internet is the ability to collect and store information that was previously only passed down between generations or spread by word of mouth. One of its downsides, though, is that it's a very big place, and trying to find relevant information can be a thankless task in a world where we're all short on time. Of all the information that's out there, MumsVillage is looking to organise it for a discrete set of people. Mums in Kenya. Isis, the founder of MumsVillage, and I discuss the platform she has built. We go into what Kenyan mums are wanting to know about, the partnerships they've built with local and international business, and how she's seeing the next wave of internet users engaging with content in a completely new way. What I like about this is how MumsVillage sits in the middle of two sets of people who each have a need, namely that they are providing value to mums whom they don't charge, and that this aggregation into one place is valuable for brands looking for an easy and powerful way to connect with them, where they do charge. This is a good lesson for any entrepreneur looking at creative ways that they can build a business. Also, we make reference to a podcast interview with a company called Link. You can listen to that episode by searching for the Services Marketplace episode when scrolling through the archive. Anyway, without any further ado, here is Isis. So we're here today with Isis from MumsVillage. Isis, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So just to get us started, can you tell us a bit about you and a bit about MumsVillage?
Absolutely. So a bit about me. My background is I'm Kenyan American. You can hear that American accent. Raised in both countries, and my background's in the media and the technology space. So I've prior to starting MumsVillage, I spent the previous decade scaling the Africa businesses for Google, MTV, Africa, and Mobi. So I had a lot of breadth of experience in both kind of content, new media, kind of digital tech companies before starting MumsVillage. And MumsVillage is Kenya's largest parenting site with localized information for parents, which I started and has been live for about 2.5 years now.
Very cool. Why did you start it?
Why did I start it? Great question. So I started at a time when, as I was saying, because I'd spent so many years prior to this in companies that were building kind of really the infrastructure for the ecosystem for the internet and trying to build for the future, which is now, where we have a critical mass of users online. And when I started to realize that we're really getting to kind of the millions of internet users in Kenya, I thought that there was a great opportunity to look at gaps in the market. And one of the gaps that I saw was and I was particularly interested in women and content for women, I think primarily because in my previous work, women tended not to be either kind of the creators, the product managers, or even really focused target market at first. So I thought, let me take my unique position and experience and focus on women. And within that category, saw that there was a gap in parenting content for online for women in Kenya and across Africa. So I thought, let me start there and build in something that I think would be quite purposeful. And really what we're trying to do is enable women to make informed choices for the health and well-being of their families through access to information and online communities and future things around that.
And future things. Okay, well, maybe we'll get to that.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you just, is it like an online community on a website? It feels a bit amorphous from how you describe it.
Yeah, so you mean we can use the word platform and ecosystem, which are even more amorphous. But when you kind of get to the nuts and bolts of it, it is a website. So at the core of it, we are a website. And we think of our website as like the publishing engine. So on the website, you'll have everything from new content about, weaning, nutrition, kind of the basics around health, but other aspects to parenting, useful things about where to take your kids to child-friendly places around Nairobi, or the cost of maternity packages in Kenya. So like very practical local information that we put together. We work with a network of over 100 contributors now in this developing this content. And so that the website is the core engine of it. But what's crucial to it is that the distribution of that content is in many different places. So across social media, email, WhatsApp, and those channels are very important because that's where people spend their time in those places. So that's when we think about our whole ecosystem. It's kind of the content's generated on the website, but consumed in many places.
Understood. So people view MumsVillage as sort of the go-to place for this type of information.
Exactly.
Where did they get that information before?
Where did they get it before? That's a great question. So where they got it before was a mix of word of mouth, and certainly Facebook has had and continues to have a lot of mom communities. And so I think there's a lot of, just purely from the community support aspect, really strength there, but content very fragmented. So if you can have key information aggregated in a place that is, kept up to date and well curated, then that's a good complement to kind of everything else that you're doing. But a lot of it comes from, prior to this, kind of word of mouth, but increasingly like Facebook communities as well.
I see. And so how do people typically find MumsVillage?
Yeah, so that is a good question. So we, actually, when I think about now that we're kind of 2 years into it, most people find us either if they're doing like a search online, so doing a Google search, looking for information.
So they'll be saying, where can I take my kids on Sunday afternoon?
Right.
Okay.
And then, we'll start to kind of surface within those searches. So that's certainly one big channel. We also have, because we're so active on social channels, that's another place that we're quite visible, that people would find us. We also have partnerships. So there's different types of partnerships we have where some of our content also lives on partner media sites. So Capital FM, Kenya Buzz, and All Africa are a couple examples around that. And we are working on a couple partnerships that would be targeted to different communities. So some partners, have communities of women who are more offline a little bit. But we would have kind of targeted partnerships with them to distribute content in different ways. So I think the partnership area is an area that's quite exciting to think about. Now that we have quite a bit of content, how can we work with partners to get it out into more places?
Got it. So in the case of Capital FM, that's one of the biggest radio stations here.
Mm-hmm.
What's the kind? Is it kind of that they need some more mum-related content?
Exactly.
Is that kind of how it works?
Yeah. So we look at how we can be complementary, and so what you find is that they have a really big, obviously, radio station, also digital platform, and so a lot of their parenting content will come from us, and so their readers can have access to, because I think also when you're a broad content platform, it's hard to go deep in any particular area, and news is very big, right? So there's kind of a lot of focus on news, but kind of these other more evergreen types of content, it's useful for them to partner with others.
Understood. And it sounds like it's quite an operation for you to be generating this content.
Mm-hmm.
You say you've got 100 different contributors.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just talk me through how that dynamic works, that side of the business?
Absolutely. So I think of the way I definitely think of them editorially is that we want to enable women to make informed choices. So what's important about that is to have, and even the name village is both to represent that it takes a village. It does represent that. It takes a village to raise a child, but also that there's a village of different voices. And so it's important to us that we have a diversity of voices in the content that we are sharing out. And so that's why we started from the outset to work with external contributors. And so it is a mix. So there is content that we do in-house, and then content with external contributors is, let's say on the health side is with health professionals. So it might be midwives, nutritionists, doctors who want a platform to get, key things out there that they're seeing in their practices. And they want kind of more people for preventative health and how to take care of different things. And so with them, some of them do write. So I'm always impressed when there's health professionals who also have time to write. But oftentimes they will pretty much give insights on specific areas for us to write that content, and then they'll approve it. So that's an example on the health side. We work with a number of mom bloggers or other bloggers who have content related to the audience, and then we will, in some cases, redistribute their content. So it's kind of a mix of that plus original content. And then, others it just depends on, we get approached by all different sorts of people to want to publish on our site, like new content or others. So it's kind of a kind of a orchestra like that,
Nice.
mix of things. Yeah.
And not to sound too sort of like capitalist or transactional about it, but like, what's in it for them?
What's in it for them?
Yeah.
So what's in it for them is, it depends. So for some people, it is the ability to have additional visibility, right? So if it is a blogger who maybe writes once or twice a month, then to have an additional platform to get their blog read, right?
So this is a Kenyan blogger who has their own audience,
right?
And so they'll say, well, if I can post on MumsVillage, that's a way for me to increase the readership on my own blog.
Exactly, because I think that, and this might have actually been in The Economist, actually, now that I think about it, but I remember reading something once, and it was really just a headline. I never read the whole article, but it was really the point that it's never been easier to create content, but it's never been harder to get people to see it. And I think for content creators, understanding that these different types of partnerships and is additive, because it's actually really hard to get people's attention in general, right? Like no matter, so I think that's kind of clearly what's in it for them. When we do have a mixed model in terms of whether it's paid or not, and it's paid when we could talk about kind of revenue model, but it's paid when we have kind of sponsored content. So when we have brands that we work with who want to do sponsored content to reach our audience, we're then able to kind of commission work to some of the writers that we work with for paid work, but it's like tied to revenue. So that's how we blend it. So it's kind of a mix of the two.
What's an example of that type of relationship you'd have?
Yeah, with the brands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. So we've been fortunate to work with pretty great brands, I would say, over the last couple of years. Both the large, we kind of think of our business as like revenue from big brand business and then small SMEs. So we do work with kind of the range with the brands. What they're looking for is how to connect with our audience in ways that are different and than they are doing that already themselves. So it's less about the banner ads, but more about engaging content. And I can give a couple examples. One of the most kind of exciting formats that we've developed recently is the MumsVillage show, which I was sharing with you earlier. And in that, we have a Facebook Live. I mean, I think we're probably the only ones doing this, like a Facebook Live series that's a mom's talk show. And in that, and we're here at the What's Good studio where we partner to do this, where brands are able to, let me just give you a specific example. There was a new app that's like a pharmacy where you can order medicine and other things from a pharmacy online. And it's an app, and they were launching last year when we started our show. And so we said, let's work together because we can really do like a demo of that app, like a video demo of it, and talk through the use case of a mom using this, right? And so for them, they're having this broad campaign awareness about their app. And then this is a category of users that's very important to them. So what we did was a really great demo, like actual video demo of how to use the app. I did the voiceover about like how a mom would actually use this. And then the guests that we had on the show, there's 2 young moms on the show, and they tested the app before they came on the show. They had their views about, why it was useful to them. And so it was a very interesting discussion and very to our audience of moms who say, oh, wow, that's interesting. I kind of better understand why I would use something like this. And so that's an example of the depth of kind of both the creativity, but also thinking of how do you help the brand achieve their goals in targeting in a way that's very useful to our audience. And so that was, and so when we ran the show, it was a segment within the show, there were a lot of questions about, then we'd say, okay, here's where you can download the app. And then people are, oh, great, that was great to learn about this. And so the product discovery of new services is very important piece of what we're trying to do for our users, and to work with brands who pay for the ability to do that. That's the best way to kind of think about it.
Very interesting. That does sound like quite a good little format. Did any of the moms, did they have negative feedback? Yeah.
Not negative feedback. I think with new products, there's so much about trying to understand how to use them. So I think that's. There tends to be more negativity about known products, like very well-known products. So one of our brand partners is a large FMCG, which will go unnamed. They have had product problems in the past, not in Kenya, but globally, and big PR issues. And so we have had some comments where people say, you shouldn't use those products, but it's one thing that we'll go back to them and say, how do you want to handle this? Do you want to communicate? Because I think that you can appreciate from a FMCG perspective, it is large companies that have great products, and yes, they've made some mistakes in the past, and it's hard for them globally to overcome them, and so that sometimes presents challenges. But these are kind of core mom and baby products, right? So they're very relevant to the wider audience. But we try to. It's been isolated. It's only been a couple times, and in those cases, we just try to bring the brand in to address that issue, because it's not so much our place to do it, but it's just more about you're kind of the in between, if you will. So
okay, right. And the MumsVillage show that's. For those who haven't seen it, that's up on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. So the best place to see it, you can see it on YouTube. Yes. The best place to see it is our website, because we have every episode there, and there's a tab on the site that's the MumsVillage show. And each, when you click on it, you can see all the titles of the shows. And then there's a quick write-up about it. So if you want to scan and say, okay, that looks, postpartum depression, that looks interesting, I could read the key highlights and then I can watch the show. They are on Facebook as well, but I've found that, so in the video, on our Facebook page within the video section, but I found that it's just easier on our site to have the full visibility of all of them. So we decided to focus on Facebook as a channel when we launched this show, to really focus on one channel. And it was both Facebook and our website. We made a decision not to use YouTube, which as an ex-Googler is it was unexpected of me, but it was more because the communities in Facebook for moms are quite strong. And so if you're watching a live Facebook show, you're more inclined to tag a friend and say, hey, watch this show, because you're already immersed in the Facebook space. And so what we said in season 1, let's focus on one channel, understand it well, and then we can always redistribute it across YouTube and everything else in the next season, or even the first season, and other platforms. So we're looking to distribute it on with other partners as well.
Oh, yeah. So. Which was the most fun episode to do?
Oh, that's a great question. We had one. I have to say that the one I laughed the most was the body image show. Okay. So we did a show about body image. With Linda Nyongwesa, who's a radio presenter, and Habita, who's a singer, and Janet Mbugo and I were the co-hosts. So we just laughed. I mean, it was just irreverent. It was just like great energy, and I think that one and the last episode we did was on fashion and beauty, and that was Pinky and Susie Wakabi, who are very good friends, and so they have a great rapport. So it was a lighthearted and just thinking about. So those are the fun ones. Yeah, the most fun.
Like it.
Yeah.
And in terms of getting people to come on your show, do you just call them up?
Yeah, we do. I would say that a great thing is that when we planned out this show, we had a lot of topics in mind, and we had a really long depth of potential guests, because we've worked with a lot of contributors. So I'll give you an example. One of our most engaged show, and so I loved all our shows, but for different reasons. Our most engaged show is about blended families, and this was and one of the guests was a woman who's a step family coach.
So what does blended?
It means like step families.
Okay,
yeah, it's like the new term for it's like.
I'm clearly I'm not in the parenting.
Yeah, you're not like yeah. So blended families, and what was so interesting about it is that so one of the guests, she's done content with us about step parenting. And she's written a book. And so and then we had a mom from our community that we just reached out to and said, sure, I'll come and share my story. And so I think the insights, I learned so much from that. And I think that it really, really resonated. And so the engagement for that show, there was that in trauma. We also had, we had a show on trauma in which, yes, we just reached out into our community. We had a kind of a mental health expert, but then we had 2 moms from the community who said, yes, I'll come and share my story. And they were really tragic, difficult stories to share. And so just that people are kind of coming, in wanting to come forth to help other people was pretty powerful. Yeah. So it's a mix of moms from the community and experts within, and a lot of people are very interested in being on the show. And so we're excited to be working with more in the next season.
Very good. Very good. When you said that the purpose of having all this engaging content, you say, is to basically get people. I'm kind of simplifying it. Yeah. Is to get people to come and be aware of MumsVillage and to be sort of users. How does that sort of then translate into revenue? Or like,
Sure.
how does sort of MumsVillage sustain itself? I imagine that
Sure.
having engaged users is valuable, but how do you kind of realize
Yeah.
that value?
Sure, and that goes back to the brand. So we do monetize with the brands who pay to do sponsored content to engage with our audience. So that is our main revenue stream. We have also there's a couple other aspects to it, and one is user research. So this is a new area where we have an opted-in research panel of parents who are very interested in testing products, and so this is an area that I'm very excited. We've done a couple product tests, but I'm very interested to be able to work with both brands, whether it's NGOs or whoever who want to kind of understand certain things that, or test certain things that have a ready audience of this demographic and then monetize that from a research and consumer insights perspective. We've also started to build partnerships where we call them kind of affiliate partnerships, might be the best way to think about it. And an example of that is Link. So we've integrated with Link, which you may have heard of.
Link were featured on the podcast.
Oh, of course they were.
Very
Yeah.
good. So you can have listen to that one as well.
I will. Fantastic. Yes. So Link. So anyone who has not listened to that show, Link is another startup here in Kenya, which is focused on kind of linking in the linked out. So basically, what the partnership is that we have integrated with them on the site, and so we've curated a set of services. So a mom can come into the section of finding a pro, and she can look for maybe a babysitter for just the Sunday or for a couple hours, or she might look for a plumber and have something fixed around the house, or a tutor for her kids. And so it's really that gig economy, being able to book services that are very well vetted. So what's been really impressive for me is that Link really vets everybody on their platform. So you have the confidence that a user on your site is going there to kind of get a service done, and then we have a partnership in place so that there's an incentive on both sides to kind of grow what that is. So that just went live. But what's great is seeing how the moms in our community are excited to kind of book these different services, hadn't heard about it, but these are, we curate the set of things that are most relevant to our audience, and then the transactions actually happen integrated onto our site.
I see. So at no point is a mom paying to get value from MumsVillage?
This is correct, except with a slight exception, and that is that is true so far. One exception to that is that we have done offline events where people will pay to participate in those events. So we've done some health talks, we've done some kind of mom and business type of offline events, and in that case they'll pay to do that, and yeah, so that's an example. But so far they don't.
Very good. Okay, so the aim of the game is to create an ecosystem, a platform that is so engaging that moms essentially just flock to it. Exactly. And then once you've got this this big audience, that then becomes valuable to external parties. Is that kind of how the business is?
Yeah, exactly. And I also I think that there is an opportunity for moms to pay for different things. I think that it's just figuring out what that is, and that's trying to understand. And that's probably spend a bit more time this year trying to understand that, because there are things that maybe we're missing. There's opportunities that they'd be willing to pay for. So we've not. We want to kind of just build value first, and then try to understand that better. Makes sense.
Up until you've been doing for 2 years now. What's been the biggest lesson that you've learned so far since starting this?
There's many lessons, definitely. I think what's one of the biggest ones? I think one of the biggest ones, and this is something that I think I've had to unlearn from my Google time, is that the new, what I kind of think of as like the new internet users in Kenya, and certainly what the critical mass of users have come onto the internet through Facebook mostly, and then WhatsApp is probably the next phase of like your first entry point to the internet. And what that's meant is that, unlike how I came on through email, I guess a long time ago, what that means is that people's expectations of how they get content is quite different from the habits that early internet users have had, where they've had to go find the information. So the case where I told you people kind of go on Google and look for something, I think is becoming less common than asking for somebody to send them that information. So I'll give you an example. I remember meeting a user more than a year ago who said, "Oh, I love your content. Just why do you make us go to your website to read it?" Right. And so this is kind of like an alarming thing for me to hear. But at the same time, we were just at the point of deciding whether to enable our articles to be on instant articles on Facebook. So anyone who's like a content publisher and uses Facebook would know that instant articles means that it's faster for the user to read it on Facebook, but you don't get the page view on your website. And so you have to make that, so we're in the middle of making that decision. Like, do we just make that decision to make it easier for users, but that makes it a little bit harder on the monetization side? And I think when that woman asked me that question, it made me realize the decision that we had to make, right? So it was kind of adjusting. I think the lesson is meeting users where they are. And I think that is a mindset shift that if you can figure out how to do that and monetize, you're in a great place, right? Like, okay. But I think it's the and I think that certainly what I've learned from over the years is that, and that's led us to do a lot of experimental things, like build up WhatsApp communities, and we're able to monetize those. And so what's been interesting is that our brand partners have actually been very fast to follow us along that path and say, okay, great, yeah, let's just. The articles on Facebook is fine. Like we'll still pay you to do that because you're reaching the users we want to reach. And so that's, I think, been the single biggest lesson. And it's operationally makes things more fragmented. But you find that then the brand is not only a website, and from a user perspective, that makes sense to them. So that's where, so I think that's been the biggest.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I haven't thought of it that way in terms of what your expectation is from the internet. I think someone once told me that there are sort of 3 stages to interacting with the internet. One is your ability, I can use this thing to communicate with people, i.e. WhatsApp. And then it's this thing the internet can tell me stuff, i.e. going and Googling things or getting information. And then the last one is I can buy stuff from this thing. And it's like you can't get to the third one unless there's enough people communicating or enough people getting information from it. Yeah. And it's almost like a sequence which has to go through. Out of interest, you've mentioned sort of the term critical mass a few times. What's sort of rough figures in terms of the number of users you've got, or the number of internet users in Kenya and stuff like that?
Oh gosh, the number of internet users in Kenya is hotly debated, because I think that the stats that I think the number of active internet users is really not more than 15 million. It's somewhere between 12 and 15 million.
Yeah, and I think 45 million population.
Yep. Yeah. And so the official stats are like there's like 90% penetration, and it is just not true. I mean, and I think that when you think about who is an active base online, and there's about 12 million WhatsApp users, so I think, and 7 million Facebook, so I think that 15 million is probably tops. And within that, we know that we reached about 800,000 people last year. But again, it's a kind of like across channels. And so we look at, we think our active user base is around, a couple 100,000 in terms of like the engaged community that we really feel is interacting with, engaging with us, and not kind of maybe just touched to us, just we only reach them once, It's kind of a bit more active than that. So that's kind of the size of.
Do people create an account on MumsVillage?
They can. We don't make it as necessary. So these are some of the things that there's a couple things that you absolutely need to log in to be able to do, but it's not that much. So those are some of the things we're looking at. How do we you kind of want to you kind of have to have a very clear reason why somebody would want to go through a login process, and so those are some things we're kind of looking at, different ways to drive more logins, because most people don't have to log in and don't.
And I suppose if the aim for you is to get as many engaged people, you want to make it as easy as possible. Right.
So there's always kind of that balance of, you don't want to make it too hard, or else people just go, they're already kind of on the move on their phone doing multiple things. So and that's, I think, also the reason that WhatsApp has taken so much of people's attention, is that it is a much faster app than Facebook. If you just think about loading time of just getting, stuff, it's just so much easier and faster.
Yeah.
So
very cool. So we'll just do a few more questions.
Sure.
So we've spoken quite a lot about sort of the journey today. If you to sort of project forward the next few years, in a rough sense, what might MumsVillage look like?
So when we kind of look forward, we see, I think a lot of opportunity. I think it's one of the key challenges actually being entrepreneurs is like focusing and trying to decide what is the biggest opportunity within this big opportunity that you have. But in the next couple of years, I certainly think that we will both expand more deliberately within Kenya. And so I think that we've most of our users are urban, which makes sense, but I think that being more deliberate about how do we understand needs in a more granular way, I think, across our user base, and then also expansion into other markets. So I think that there's big opportunity in other markets as well, both and trying to see. So I think that would be something for us. I think video as a format, the MumsVillage show, other video formats will continue to be a key part to what we do, and also looking at the use of messaging. So we do quite a bit around there, but I think we look at the trends. I think all the predictions are that if they haven't happened already, that most people spend more time on chat than any other platform. So that's very interesting, and I'm excited about the opportunity that presents.
And are there other other platforms that you can draw inspiration from, or others that have sort of done this before?
Oh, that is such a great question. I think we definitely get inspiration from different places. I think when I look at the parenting content space, there's quite a lot out there. Certainly in the global sphere, like in Europe and the US, and only a few companies that I've seen trying to do all the elements that we're doing, some in Southeast Asia, but most companies either focus purely on commerce, or they'll focus purely on content, or they'll focus on, so I think that we see a valuable audience and trying to find many different services to bring to them. That's kind of how I see us now and into the future. So, but ones that I directly draw inspiration, that's a hard one, because I guess I get it from a lot of different places. But I think certainly women's content sites that, Brit & Co is one that has nothing to do with like moms. It's really more content for women, and it was started by another person who used to work at Google. I didn't know her, but she kind of just created something that was unusual in that it was kind of DIY, content for women, video, crafts, and all this stuff, and it's doing incredibly well in the US. And so when I see people tapping into women's content in news ways, those are the things that I find quite inspiring. But yeah, so that's one that comes to mind at the moment.
Okay. And people listening at home, how can they learn more about MumsVillage?
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. Really just go to MumsVillage.com is the best way to kind of see kind of the breadth of what we have, and to kind of look at our our reach on social. I think that's on different social pages, but I think that that's the best place.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Isis, thanks so much.
Thank you. All right, great.
Before we head, just a quick moment to say thank you for listening. You can see show notes for this episode by heading to www.samfloy.com/podcast. That's samfloy.com/podcast. If you'd like to learn more about the podcast and stay updated on future episodes, as well as a few other things like behind the scenes pictures, then please check out our Facebook page. Search for the East Africa Business Podcast, and you can like it from there. Finally, if you felt this was a good episode, then please do leave a rating for the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. It helps others like you find the show, and I, for one, would really appreciate it. In any case, have a great week and speak to you soon.